Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast, and we are the number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, down, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between there with some amazing people that not only walk the walk, but talk the talk, and out here doing some amazing things. And of course, you guys already know I have an amazing guest for you guys today, and she's going to be bringing a lot of knowledge to the table with her journey. So please get your questions and comments ready. Put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go along. But most importantly, this is for educational purposes only. All right. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Allison, to the show. Allison, how you doing?
Good. Good to be here, Tony. Thank you.
Same here, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now, before we get started, introduce yourself. Tell people who you are, what you do, and where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Okay. My name is Allison. I live in Northern Alberta, Canada. I am a health coach and a holistic nutritionist. And I specifically help women who have been through grief, major change, and are ready to take control of their health, feel confident again, feel energized, and just heal on a holistic level. So that's, mind, body, soul, includes exercise and nutrition and understanding your worth and your vision and your purpose. All these things are so important in our overall well-being.
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for coming on and sharing your journey with us today. Now, would you like to walk people through your journey and how you got into this work?
Okay. Well, I will start how I originally was introduced to health coaching, and then I'll kind of talk about my journey through grief. So it was probably 5 years ago or so, a friend of mine who's a physician, she told me she was going to start a holistic fertility clinic and she wanted me to work for her as a health coach. And I said, absolutely, like that's right up my alley. I would love to do that. So at that point, I went through my training, got certified as a health and wellness coach and a holistic nutritionist. And right when I'd finished my schooling, I also had my 11th child. And she did not end up starting her clinic. I don't know if she will in the future or not, but and so my husband was making money. I was a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling, busy. So I didn't really pour myself into coaching and trying to find clients. I had some clients here and there. And it was a lot happened that year. Right around the same time, I was able to voice the words, "This is abuse." And I spoke to my counselor and I said, I'm actually, my husband's a narcissist and I'm being abused. And I was also able to tell her, like, I don't feel like God loves me. And I know intellectually he does, but my heart doesn't accept that because I'm just not good enough. So, how could someone who's perfect love me the way I am? And she had me read Psalm 139 carefully, slowly, prayerfully. And it's all about how God loves us. He knows every single detail of our life. He knit us together. And when you knit, you just one little stitch at a time. And you carefully do each stitch. And the tension matters. Everything matters. So I was finally able to understand that God loved me and to accept that. And that was the foundation of my healing. Because if God loved me, I did not deserve to be treated the way I was treated. I had dignity. I needed to have boundaries. I needed to stand up for myself. There was all these things that surrounded that basic understanding. And I knew that as I healed, it would become harder and harder to stay in that marriage. And that was the case because it was hard. If you're blaming yourself, like I just turned all the anger towards myself because it was easier than blaming him. And of course he was blaming me as well for his actions. And so I just turned all the anger inwards, and that started to change, and it became harder to put up with abuse. As I would stand up for myself in one area, he just kind of find another way to make me miserable. Yeah. And so I tried very hard to stay for the kids because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. In the end, I actually ended up leaving for the kids. And that's what really I guess, threw me into some pretty serious grief until I walked through that and healed from that.
Yeah. Now, wow, you know what I'm saying? Because when you put the words narcissist in there, I'm just, I can definitely relate to that, right? You know what I'm saying? And there's no rhyme or reason for them, but I do wish them all the best. I just want them to stay away from me. And all the innocent people, like no one putting innocent people in their paths. You know what I'm saying? Because they could get very, very destructive. Um, but now, it helps me pose the question. Can you walk us through what your grief looked like?
Hmm. It's interesting because I couldn't cry. I had shut that part of myself off
Really?
because, yeah, I felt like I wasn't able to. I went through so much pain, and I felt like if I expressed that pain that he put me through, it would show up as unforgiveness, or he wouldn't
Mm,
like it. Like he was uncomfortable with my emotions, and I didn't want to reach out to other people. I think I was protecting myself. I still do that a certain amount. And so I had just stopped crying. Like I couldn't cry. And so there were a lot of tears. And I think some of that maybe were tears that were supposed to come out a long time ago and didn't. But I cried and cried and cried. And I got so sick of crying. Um, and it was the deepest grief I've ever felt. Um, I think because it wasn't supposed to happen. Death, depending on the death. Like my mom passed away. That was different. She had Alzheimer's. I had been grieving her for years before she even died, but
right.
it's a natural part of life. But I was supposed to have this stay with this man forever. I never dreamed I'd be in the situation. Divorce was never an option to me. And we had all these beautiful kids. So I think a lot of the grief, I realized it wasn't actually because I missed him. I genuinely did not miss him. I missed who I wished he was. I missed who I believed he was. I was grieving the loss of the family we were supposed to have. I was grieving the loss of, my children's whole intact family. But then I realized it was never whole anyway. And so I just had to make it the best that it could be in my control. Like I can't give my kids two parents, but I could give them one healthy parent. And that was really the beginning of change. But a lot of grief looks different for everybody, right? I think the thing that helped me the most in my grief, people say, oh, you should journal, get the words out. Like, well, there aren't always words, you
Right.
know?
True. Yeah.
Um, I, I danced a lot. That was my healing. I would dance alone under the stars. We live in the country, so I have this luxury. No one thinks I'm crazy because they can't see me. But there were times I would dance outside at night. I had put my headphones on, listen to some loud music, and the northern lights would creep out. I'd be dancing with the northern lights, be dancing under the stars. Sometimes there's one experience I had actually physically felt some of the trauma come out of my body. And I can't even explain it now, but it's something I just felt. There were times I just collapsed on the forest floor weeping, but that's how I dealt with it. Really. I tried to hide it from my family as much as I could. Whether that's healthy or not, I don't know. I think it's important your kids see you hurting a certain amount, but I don't want them to have to carry that burden for me.
Right.
Anyway, that was my grief, I guess you could say. But when I made that acknowledgement that my kids never had a whole family anyway, and that what I could do for my kids was to be as healthy as I could be, that was a big turning point for me. And that's really when I went from surviving to leaving, and then just grieving, and then moving on with my life to, work on my career, work on myself, be a better parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to the next question, because your children and things like that. Did you ever talk to them about this? And or did they ever come to you to talk about it? Right? Because and the reason why I ask is because with my son's mom, she has two older daughters, and we sit around and we talk about the abuse that, you know what I'm saying, mother has put upon them and their resentment and things like that. And, you know, I was right there with you. I wanted to always be the parent that my son needed. You know what I'm saying? He needed a healthy parent, right? You know, and so I had to be that. But the abuse, that was crazy. I didn't think anybody was capable of doing something like that, but I was like, no, don't want to do this, right? But do they ever sit down and talk to? Do you ever talk with them or no?
That's a really hard one to navigate because I don't want to dishonor their father
Understood.
and disrespect him. He is their father. And then I have all age ranges, right? So they have varying levels of understanding. And I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And I make some mistakes and I'm still working through it. But my biggest concern is that they recognize unhealthy patterns and don't repeat them. And so instead of saying, oh, your dad, blah, 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 you know, if we're talking about something comes up, I'll just say, hey, you know, I know this was not modeled for you, but this is what respect looks like. These are certain boundaries that everyone needs to have.
Right.
And I know that's not something that was really shown to you in this home. So I try and point it out in a tactful, non-mean way so that they do see and understand that, you know, their dad's behavior was not okay. And that's not normal. And that's not how we treat people. But at the same time, I want to do it in a way, teaching manner and not a, what's the word I'm looking for? Bashing their father, you know? I want to be careful not to do that. Yeah.
Definitely understood that, right? Because two wrongs never make a right. You know what I'm saying? Two wrongs never make a right. And, you know, I was just out of curiosity. I was like, because I know that I've talked to a bunch of kids who have gone through this. And, you know, you try to do what's right by them, right? You know what I'm saying? And I commend you for teaching them like, hey, no, this, you know, let's use this as a teachable moment, right? You know what I'm saying? And show you a better way to do things. So now it leads me up to the question, what was your deciding factor of doing the work that you do now, working with other women going through something similar? Get into.
Well, a lot of women who have been in abusive situations, relationships, don't have a voice. It's not something they want to talk about. And I'm willing to speak about it and I'm willing to share my story. And I want to help people through that. And I feel like this is the best way that I can help people.
Right.
I actually, after I left, I decided, I'm going to get into copywriting because I love to write and I like psychology and it just makes sense. But I'm going to write for coaches because I don't want to write for anybody else because I just almost physically couldn't. Because I wanted to make a difference. I want to do something that mattered. And I wasn't in the headspace to be coaching at that time anyway. And then I ended up with a coaching client by mistake. She came to me and I tried to like, oh, don't you want copywriting done? She's like, no, I want coaching. So she's been with me for months now. And I realized, oh yes, this is what was meant to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where my gifts are at. This is why I can't write. This is why I'm not a great copywriter because I only want to write for coaches because I want to make a difference. So why am I not coaching? And then I just did a complete 180 and then poured myself into that. And it took a bit of time to get my messaging and my niche quite exactly right. At first, I wanted to help women who had been in abusive relationships. But I realized a lot of women like that just aren't willing to come forward, even though the percentages are really, really, really high as far as like very many women have been abused. But then I realized my story is not so much about being abused as it is about restarting, getting a fresh start on life, embracing my uniqueness, choosing how I want to show up in the world, and really finding my spark and my joy and thriving.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to help other women to do. I mean, so many women, they just pour their lives into their career or their family, and they just don't even know who they are anymore. And they just need a hand to kind of get back on track, take care of themselves, do what it takes to find, because there's so much information about, you know, exercise and nutrition, and you have to follow this and you have to do that. But Most of us aren't going to follow those strict regimens because we need to find something that fits into our life and that works with our personality. Otherwise, we're not going to do it consistently, right?
Right.
Like I had always failed at exercising regularly because I thought I'd exercise at the time that seemed to make the most logical sense to me. And I realized for, reasons that wasn't working and that wasn't going to work. And I actually started exercising in the evening, which is not usually what is recommended, but it works for me and I love it. And it's become my therapy. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was just finding how to fit that into my life. And everyone's unique, right? So that's where a coach can come along and help a person out and help them figure out what works for them and then
Right.
help them reach their goals.
So I like that. And as you were speaking about that, I love the fact that you did mention, most people that have gone through abusive relationships, they have a hard time finding themselves again. And I started thinking to myself, like, that's identity grief, right? Because when you're so used to being in a relationship that is not the healthiest, right? You tend to conform to fit into that relationship to not only survive, um, but to begin to look at things as this is just the way that it's supposed to be. And you forget exactly who you are, right? And so trying to figure out what comes after that, trying to figure out who you are throughout all of these different things, that is that can be a challenge in all itself, right? And so for anybody out there right now that may be listening, what would be some steps that you would help someone take to redefine who they are in something like that through the abuse?
I think the first thing is to understand that it's okay. Like who you are is good and you're not wrong for being who you are. Because we all have our own uniqueness. Like Tony, if I try and be just like you, I'm going to fail. And if you try and be like me, you're going to fail.
Exactly.
We're created differently. We have different gifts to bring to the world. And I think the very first thing, especially if you've been in an abusive relationship, who you are is not okay. And I know that was definitely the case in with me. I was always who I was not acceptable, right? And he was always trying to change me. So recognizing that who you are is good, and that you're unique and you have a purpose is the first step. And then I think it takes some time and some self-reflection, and it's not something that's going to happen in a day or a week. But for some people, journaling, thinking about what excites you, the things you've done well before, your purpose, or your like what type of causes light you up. Maybe it's environmental causes, or maybe it's missionary work, or whatever it is. That kind of all these things help give you clues about who you are, what you've done well at school, the subjects you enjoyed, the types of activities that you think are exciting. And you can ask other people too. Sometimes other people have some pretty good insight on us. And for me, a lot of it too is energy. How my energy flow actually looks like. I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD, and so understanding how my energy works throughout a day is very important in my productivity, because I can't just make myself a list and then tick everything off. That just doesn't work. So I've learned a lot actually about myself in the past year throughout all of this, and what excites me. And it's a matter of, there's some trial and error as well. It's very important that I would say be patient with yourself, because it's going to take time. And that comes to that brings us to mindset, which is so important. And that's something I had to really work on and change, as well as my mindset. Being patient with myself, recognizing that when I run into challenges and make mistakes, instead of beating myself up, which was what I would have done, I say, okay, there's a lesson. Nobody gets it right the first time. What's the lesson that I have to learn here? And how can I move forward now with this new knowledge that I have?
Okay. And now, as you were speaking that, this term came to mind. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. because a lot of times what happens, and just from what I've seen on this end, a lot of people would carry a lot of that with them for years and years and years. This is what I like to call compacted grief, right? And then one day, you find yourself in a situation where it begins to overflow and fall out of you, right? And it looks pretty messy after a while, right? So my question would be, what are your thoughts on compacted grief, and how can a person keep it from spilling over or erupting like a volcano over time?
I have two thoughts that are coming to mind as you say that. The one is one is basically really be patient with yourself and take the time to work on your grief, because if you don't, it's all just going to come out the wrong way at the wrong time. It'll be too much, right? So you might not be able to address all the layers of the grief and the trauma all at once. But that's okay. Just listen to yourself, take the time that you need. I am just now ready to start the trauma piece. Before that, I'm like, nope, I'm not going there. I don't know what's down there and I don't want to dig it out.
No, I understood. Definitely understood. But yeah, no, nope.
But I'm at the place now where I've healed enough where I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's move on. Let's get this rooted out and dealt with, because I know I have repressed feelings, because I should probably be more angry than I am. I'm just not angry. And there's also the thing about, you said things coming out the wrong way. As I've gained a voice, I've had to learn to curb that voice a little bit. Sometimes I find myself saying things in a way that surprises me, because I'm not that person, and I've never been a rude person. I don't want to be a rude person, but sometimes my voice that I've just learned to use is a little bit too loud. And so it can be messy. The grief can come out, and it can come out the wrong way. And it's important that we just, when we mess up, we just apologize, say, I'm sorry, that's not me, and I wasn't kind thing to say. And we're humans, right? We're going to make mistakes. And if we've been hurt badly, it'll probably come out, and it won't always be pretty. And it won't always be in this neat little package in your therapy session while you're dancing in the forest or speaking to a therapist, right? So I think just being real, just being human. We're all humans. We just apologize when you mess up, work at it piece by piece, and just be patient with yourself.
I would like to add to that as well, because as you were speaking, I was going, does it really come out the wrong way when you find your voice? Because, and the reason why I say this, right, what I'm saying, because there's always another side to it as well. Sometimes the people that are around us when it comes out are normally the ones that have watched us go through it, right? So there should be a set understanding of the language that's coming out of your mouth. Like, no, I've been having to keep my mouth shut for this long, and you're around me. You got to watch it, so now you get to hear my voice, right? And they should understand as well. Like, I never tell people to suppress it from other people, because so long in our lives we're told, no, don't do this and don't do that and don't do this and don't do that, and in turn they do the things to us that they tell us not to do to them, right? So I'm a firm believer. Hey, I match your energy. Remember those times when you was talking to me crazy? Well, guess what? I'm going to get you back, right? And probably not the best way to go about doing it. Probably not the best way to go about doing it. But I'm going, you know what? If you can sit around and watch me go through the things that I've gone through and not understand why I feel the way that I do, then you have a choice. You can walk away at any given moment. But if you choose to stay around me and listen to what I have to say, listen with empathy and understanding that it's not directed towards you. Maybe something that you said triggered me, right? So I'm just giving it back to you. And therefore, because look, my mama told me at some point you got to learn. you have to learn, right? And I think that's part of the process. That's part of developing grace, I believe, Allison, and forgiveness, and things like that. Like, grief unapologetically is my other saying. Grieve unapologetically, Those who understand will, and those who don't need to, right? Because maybe they haven't experienced what you've experienced to the level that you've experienced it. And some of them are experiencing it and they still suppressing it because they're afraid of what someone else may say. Oh no.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
yeah, that's all good points. Yeah. No, I know with myself, I got mad at, I wasn't rude, but my face says too much sometimes. I got mad at like the nurse practitioner, and afterwards I apologized. It's just, I was standing up for my kids and my voice was, she was just so sweet. She didn't mean anything bad, but I just, anyway. Yeah. So it's not just the people around us. It's that are around us every day. It's sometimes other people that don't deal with us every day that we just, my voice might be a little bit too loud at times,
but it's
but
part of your
it's,
healing though, right?
sorry,
It's part of your healing,
it
right?
is, it's part of it. Yeah.
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 And again, I'm just sharing a thought. Like if it's part of your healing, heal unapologetically, grieve unapologetically, do what you need to do. Like no one says that this is the way it's supposed to be, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's no blueprint for it. You out of respect, you should be able to do these things unapologetically. And again, you know what I'm saying? I know I said it one time before, I'm gonna say it again. Those who understand will always have understanding, and those who don't will always be offended because they don't understand. Probably a good thing that they don't understand, um, and probably not a good thing that they don't understand, right? Because if they're, say for instance, if I'm going to be in a space with Allison while you're actively going through what you're going through, that means that I'm there to visit with you in these moments because I know I got a better understanding, right? You know what I'm saying? That this is yours. And if I'm going to put myself in a situation to where I'm going to be in that space, then I need to be a good visitor in your space through respect, and and let you do what you need to do, right? Because in the end, you'll be all right, But again, just my thoughts on it, right? And I'm sure you probably see it with other women that are going through something that have gone through something similar, right? That they may find themselves in situations where they're just like, "Oh," and I can only imagine you sitting there going, "Yep, get on out." Right? Wouldn't that be nice if somebody um, gave that same energy to you, to where you didn't have to come back and understand or apologize? Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And I with my friends, sometimes I get a little bit, if I get a little bit carried away, I don't apologize. I don't apologize unless it's directed at them, which can't think of a time where it has been. But yeah, it's, all of this is messy. Life is messy, and we're
Mm,
all humans.
very true. No, how how do you help people approach the narcissist, the narcissist um, these days, right? You know what I'm saying? Because the narcissist will teach you certain things. It would actually teach you how to not engage with them in a lot of different ways, right? Because once you've seen it before, you're like, yeah, no, I've seen that one before. I'm not doing that one, right? Um, but how do you help coach and help coach these women navigate those situations?
Well, it's hard because there's this abuse.
Mm,
So many women who leave end up co-parenting, and they have to deal with their abuser on a regular basis. And so many will abuse through their children.
mm,
They'll take every opportunity to control or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but it's so important to understand the games and understand that they are trying to get to you, and just guard your peace. When my ex has tried to, like, I put in a boundary where I will not speak to him on the phone. I quickly decided that was not a good plan. Everything was text. So that did several things. I mean, if he goes crazy, I can record it. It's all documented. Another thing
Mm,
is he's going to be careful what he says because it can be recorded. And the other thing is it gives me time to reflect on what he said, to react privately. There's been times I've written messages to him, like deleted, write it, delete it, and then just not respond. Because I know that if he knows my buttons, right? And if he says something to make me really angry, or where I want to just jump in and defend myself, I'm giving him power. That's exactly what he wants me to do.
Yes.
And I will not give him that satisfaction. He knows, he does not know how I feel about anything. Nothing. I don't share my feelings, my thoughts. It's everything is facts, and everything is just as short as it needs to be or can be. I know that's hard for people to get to that point, but when you understand that it's a power struggle, and that by you keeping your silence, we want to defend ourselves, right? We always want to defend ourselves and to protect ourselves. But understanding that your true protection comes when you just guard your peace and don't engage.
Right.
And I know that's hard to do, but that is so key in actually limiting the abuse and guarding your own peace and your own feeling of safety, really.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. Do you ever feel that, do you ever feel that disconnecting your emotions is what is the primary reason why you keep yourself safe? You know what I'm saying? Especially navigating. And what I mean by that, right? Because I was listening, and there were certain things that you said, and I was just curious about it, right? Because I know I do this as well. I can disconnect my emotions from things and just go, nope, I'm not even going to entertain it, right? Or like as you said, I'm not going to give it the power that it needs to control me. So if I don't have an emotional reaction to it, then that limits what this person, can do to me, right? And as a man, it was real hard to admit that I did these things to keep myself safe. And I even do it now, right? When someone, and I just look at them and go, nope, not doing it. And then I get called cold and things like that. I'm like, no, I'm not cold. Just because I choose not to have an emotional reaction to you doesn't mean that I'm cold. It just means that I'm not going to give it the energy that you want me to give it to. If you choose to be mad at me, okay, that's fine. It's not my problem, right? And I can disconnect myself in that manner. And so that would be the question that I pose to you. Do you ever is that something that you can do in order to keep yourself safe from that sort of verbal or mental abuse?
That's what I did in the past.
Okay.
A lot of it was just I felt like I wasn't safe to express my emotions, and so I repressed them. And I know those will come out, and I wasn't ready to deal with it until now. But the other side is I try not to do that now. So if he or anyone else really triggers me or makes me angry or pushes my buttons, I try not to repress those emotions, but it doesn't mean I share that with them. I go and deal with it on my own. I pray or, yell or whatever. I think it's important that we don't repress and disconnect from our emotions. We let them happen. But also that we don't let the thoughts connected to those emotions gain control of us.
Yes.
That's really important. But to mindfully deal with emotions as they come up in a healthy way and then move on. He did something a couple weeks ago that made me so angry. And that was one of those times where I just texted, deleted, asked someone else, should I reply to this? Decided, no, I'm not going to. Was angry for a couple days. And then I worked through it and I laugh now. It's ridiculous. So it doesn't bother me anymore.
Understood. Definitely understood because, I was sitting around thinking someone did this to me yesterday. And I laughed, right? And so they were texting me, and I just kind of looked at the text message. I deleted it, and so and then a few hours later, did you get my text message? Like, nope, I sure didn't. They go, well, I texted you this, and so I wait for it to come in again, and I delete it. And so, I knew very well what I was doing. That it was the reverse. It was the reverse emotions for me. I was like, yeah, as long as I can tell you that I'm not doing it, it's going to frustrate you a lot more than what it's frustrated me. And so, therefore, I get to sit back and laugh because every time you ask me if I got it, I do. I got it, but I'm not going to respond to it. So maybe I shouldn't do that because sometimes I think that I'm setting myself up to get throat punch. But who knows? Think about it, just like I did tell you, oh, take that, Tony. You're like, oh, it got me. But
that carefree attitude and not letting it affect you is admirable. That's
well,
important.
I wish that for everyone who's gone through it, right? For the simple fact of I one of the things that I developed along the way in my healing process was that I realized that I couldn't change anyone.
Mhm.
The only thing that I have control over is what I can control, right? And so if I have this much power, then why would I give that to someone else when all I have to do is just go, yeah, no, right? Like if you was to call me on the phone and try that, I remind people that you just called me. I will hang up the phone on you. And if you call me back a couple minutes later and I'm hanging up the phone again. Who do you think that makes mad? Me or them? I find
No
that
doubt.
hilarious, right? But like, yeah, keep doing it. I can do this all day long because I pay the bills on my phone. If you come to my house and start making a fool out of yourself, I don't have to answer my door. There's people that's going to call the police on you. Not going to be me. You did this to yourself. Why not? I'm going to sit back and laugh. And when the cops show up and taking you away, I'm going to stick my head out the door and go, that's right. And don't do it again. Go back in the house. Right. But I do wish that for more people to be able to take those situations and sometimes just laugh. Find a reason to laugh about it, right? Because it takes a special individual to want to do that to someone else. And if that's the attention that they want, let them get it. Just not from you,
Mhm.
right? They're the
I think
ones
it's
that have to do. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important to recognize a pattern too. Like, and I know you know this, but if someone who's generally decent person does something that's not decent, you can call them out on it. Say, hey, that wasn't okay what you said to me.
Mhm.
And hopefully they apologize. But if someone who has a pattern of not being a decent person continues to not be a decent person, you educating them on that is not going to help. Because, so one lady said to me, oh, do you think he knows that what he's doing is wrong? I said, let me ask you a question. Does he do that to you? Does he treat you that way in front of other people? She said, no, never. I said, that's your answer. He knows exactly what he's doing is wrong. You do not need to educate a grown man on how to treat you.
Yes.
And your
I'm,
education is not going to help.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing. What's the biggest thing when people who aren't decent, what is their biggest fear? Is that other people know that they're not decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a manipulation tactic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from my narcissist, how to get her in trouble and expose herself. So she learned the hard way not to mess with me, right? But she's the one who taught me, right? Because the things that she would do to me was she would do it from around other people. And if I tried to say something, it would just make me look like I was the crazy one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, you're just a disgruntled father and things like that. And I go, no, she really is doing these things. So she taught me not to do that. And so what I would do, I would just ignore it. Worst thing for a narcissist is for them to feel ignored. They
Mm-hmm.
need that attention. So I would get her to a point to where she would expose herself. And then after that, she couldn't hide it anymore because more people, she got the audience that she wanted, and now more people saw who she was. So in turn, I just sat back and looked at her and go, the more and more you do this, the more and more you're just proving the point that I have not had the chance to make. You're the problem. And she realized right then and there that she would have to be a lot smarter, right? So she did. She began sending me emails, and I said, this really is not too smart for you because you just sent me a whole email with everything that you just confessed to. Wow. I was like, I'm going to save this one. Do you have any more that you would like to send to me? Right? And she like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, I can't believe that you keep doing it. Like that don't make any sense. Like what do you have next for me? This is what I asked, right? What is it that you have next? Are you going to stalk me again? Well, guess what? I have camera phones now. Please, by all means, do it. You want to talk to me and call the police on me? Well, I got camera phones for that too. That actually record you saying it. So when the police come, you can explain to them why you did it. So now again, it takes a long time to get to that point, right? It takes a long time to figure to see those habits and put things into place.
Mhm.
But once you do it, it just becomes funny after that, right? Like how far can I get? What else can I get away with? You know what I'm saying? That you're going to give me to get away with, right? Because um, you ever hear this term self-inflicted wounds are the worst ones?
I haven't.
Yeah, well, that's a great term, right? That's
Yep.
a great saying. Self-inflicted wounds are the worst ones. If you understand that, well, let them keep doing it,
Mhm.
right? Eventually, they're going to have to stop because, you know, one thing about abusive people, they hate to lose, at least by their own hand,
Mhm.
right? I don't know, just something I would just throw together, just put together as we were talking and things like that. And I remembered like how I stopped mine, but then she got me. She got me one last time though, right? You know what I'm saying? She really did, and I was like, ooh, that was good, right? But I didn't let it bother me because it was good, right? I didn't expect that one, but she got me. And I said, all right, touche. Touche. But no, no. What are your thoughts on that though? You know what I'm saying? Because I find it entertaining to be able to do something like that to the people who abuse me.
Um, for me personally, I try not to let what he does really affect me at all in any way. He
Hmm.
can go do his thing. I know that I have my piece and it's worth so much to me. You know, I think there's a lot of people who never even question. They just
Right.
when I told them we were separated, they're like, "Oh, okay." And most people didn't ask questions, thankfully. But for the people that did believe him, okay, you know, I'm sorry to see you go, but I'm not going to fight for you. I'm not going to defend myself. You can believe what you choose to believe. I'm just going to stay over here and keep my peace. I guess I he tried for so long to silence me. You know, he didn't like me saying too much in front of other people. He didn't like me saying too much at all ever. He didn't like me talking. Everything I said was wrong or anyway. I just happily tell myself he spent so long trying to silence me. That's all he gets now. He just gets my silence and it's such a good feeling. That
Hmm.
safety. The safety is so beautiful. And for me, I just if he at first I was following his social media a little bit. I mean, he blocked me, but not on every medium. And he would post pictures of him and his girlfriend and all this stuff, and it bothered me a bit. And I thought, why am I even checking? Why do I care? He can do him. I don't even. If it comes into my circle and affects me and affects my emotions, affects my children, then I'll just make sure that the boundaries are up, that we're all safe. But
Hmm.
otherwise, he can just do his thing, and I'm just going to let him live his life and not let it bother me.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Which now leads me to my next question. How do you get people out of those situations that are stuck, right? And what I mean by that, because most people will continue 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 these cycles with other people, right? Because it becomes a norm for them, right? And they get stuck they get stuck in that victim's mentality, like they're looking for someone to treat them the same way so they can be a victim. And I often find that as a strange addiction, but I know that it's a real thing. People are addicted to being a victim in situations, right?
Hmm.
They have the strength to leave one, but then they go and find someone who treats them the same, if not worse, right? And it becomes like, oh, I'm gonna just continue doing this. And then when you have conversations with them, um, it's always like, well, they did this to me, and this person. They always have stories about what these people did to them, but never take responsibility for the choices that they made to put themselves in those situations.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a coach, it's important that I recognize when someone could probably use another professional and then
Mm-hmm.
recommend that. But I have a couple things to say as well. When you are confident and you're on the right path and you're growing and you're healing, all that need for the drama and the external, these toxic relationships tends to lessen. And I think we can often get caught up in the details, like, oh, this person is bad, and the um look at this little behavior and this behavior, instead of focusing, and that's not bad to point those things out, but understanding the bigger picture, like what do you want? What's your
Right.
vision? What's your heart telling you? Why are you attracted to that type of person?
Right.
And then trying to figure out what is and these are things I've had to do myself, coach
Yeah, me
myself as
too.
well.
Me
Like, why am I attracted to that person? And I realized they're not all good reasons, and I shouldn't be attracted to that person. And it just shows something about myself and where I am in my healing. But I ask myself a lot of questions all the time. I guess that's part of being a coach, maybe.
Mhm.
You know, what is it in you that is wanting to be loved by this type of person who probably does not have the ability to love you? And I think recognizing those bigger pictures helps people understand um, maybe their unhealthy patterns, because a lot of it comes back to our core wounds and what we're missing in life. How our dad or our father treated us or didn't love us or whatever it is, right? So I think coaching can be very helpful. At the same time, sometimes you need a therapist is helpful as well. I mean, they're two separate fields, but they can help kind of the same clients. And it's a very fine line that we have to tread, not to step on each other's toes. Coach is mostly like looking forward, right? But there's also the self-reflection. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, from it's such an individual thing and a case by case thing, right? So
I that is correct, but I also want to add to that as well, like understanding um where your skills may not be as effective, right? So it's following that line, right? You know what I'm saying? And in a way, it's just like understanding your limits, you know what I'm saying, and what you do and where somebody else's capabilities pick up on, right? You know what I'm saying? And not being afraid to go, hey, I'm gonna introduce you to someone who may be a little bit more effective at helping you than I can be, right? And as someone like myself, I'm a grief coach, and so I understand that I'm very aware. I'm very very aware of where my capabilities end, and which is the best thing, you know what I'm saying? Because I do know a lot of people around the world where I can go, hey, you know what? I'm going to recommend this person to you, and maybe you can help them a lot better than I can. So
yeah.
I'm very, very, very aware of that right there, because the last thing I want to do is hurt someone, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know how to let them go, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm too stubborn to go, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying, I'm not capable of helping this. No, I don't do it for that. I do it because for one, I want to make sure that they do have the necessary support that they need from the right people, right? You know what I'm saying? I always want to make sure that the people I introduce them to is going to help nurture them in their walk and things like that. So exactly what you were saying, just adding a little bit to it. You know what I'm saying? It's just being aware, right? You know what I'm saying? And not being afraid of saying, hey, I can't help you, but I know somebody else who can.
Hmm. Yes, you said it perfectly. I was fumbling over my words. I do have a list of other types of coaches that could
Right.
complement my work, because I don't have an ego about this. I would feel so much better just saying, hey, these are the parameters. This is where I feel like I could really help you, and be honest about that. I feel like I can help a lot of women in this area,
Hmm.
but also recognizing too, here's some other people that I think could help you better,
Right.
in
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
in this setting, right? Like I'm not a grief coach. I'm not a trauma coach. I've been through that, but it doesn't mean that that's my expertise. And I want
Right.
people to, I mean, like as coaches, we want to help people, right? We want to see them succeed. We want to see them do well. And whether that's through us or, with somebody else.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that I find um, in my limitations as well, and even with a lot of other people, is humbling yourself, right, to a place and going, you know what, yeah, this is where I'm good at, and things like that, and what I'm saying, and opening up the doors for someone else to step in to be able to take over. But most importantly, understanding how to pivot, um, not only in your work, but in conversations to people, right? That you're trying to help, because when you do, like the beautiful thing about it is that unfortunately we had to go through the things that we've gone through. The beautiful thing about it is that we're able to recognize this, and through conversation we can build that relationship with those individuals, right? Although without taking away from what we're doing, without taking away from it. Like, I'm a firm believer that, hey, what I'm saying, no matter what you do, learn how to pivot. And what I mean by that, learn how to listen to what they're saying, understanding that, what I'm saying, sometimes no words need to be said. You just need to listen. And when you do speak from a place of deep embedded empathy, so you don't take away from what this person is going through, but you're helping them navigate through there to where, and but have a plan, have something in place, have a plan, right? For yourself and for them. You know what I'm saying? And when you get to a certain place, know how to effectively exit that said relationship with the individuals, right? So
Mhm.
that's what I mean by pivot and things
Mhm.
like that. What are your thoughts are?
Yeah. So you said it perfectly. You said it beautifully. Yeah. And I think I'll add to, when we're trying to be everything to everybody, or we're trying to help them in all these different ways, we're actually kind of taking away from where we truly shine.
Yes, yes. But now I want to add to that. I want to add to
Okay.
that too, because you're absolutely right, right? But I think in so many ways, if you're aware of if you're aware of yourself and things like that, you're not taking away from your shine. The only time that we take away our shine is when we try to step into other people's lanes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like you said, like if I step over in Allison's lane, I know Allison's going to whoop me. You know what I'm saying? So I know to stay out of that, right? You know what I'm saying? I know how to stay in my own lane.
Well, I'm
But
going to keep my own peace. I'm not going to whoop you.
no, no, no. But see, but it's intellectually, right? You know what I'm saying? I understand that, like this isn't my lane. I don't belong over here. What am I doing over here? I work with grief. I work with trauma and recovery and suicidal ideation and things like that. That's where I shine the most, right? So why would I go over into Alice's lane when I know that this is her lane and this is where she shines the most, right? What am I doing over there? I ain't got no reason to be over there. Alice ain't gonna come to him like, Tony, I done told you stay out my lane, right? And make me upside the head or push me back in my own lane, like stay over there. I done told you, right? And I understand that, right? But that's what I make jokes about it. But in a lot of ways, when we can maximize our experiences and combine them in what we're doing, it just helps your spark that much more, what I'm saying, shine into the world. Who was it? Dr. Martin Luther King said, a person in their gift, no matter what happens, the world will be the path to your door, no matter where you go. And so when you truly have your gift, and that gift is sparkling, no matter what you do, you're always going to shine, right? You become a beacon for those who are seeking what you carry. So and it's just understanding that as well. So in a lot of ways, I agree with you, and I just wanted to add that to you. So just to have a better understanding and get your thoughts on it, because I don't think anybody can ever take away your shine, right? You know what I'm saying? Not not without taking away the thing that makes you who you are, right? And I think that's the part when you speak about protecting your peace and things like that, you're not only protecting your peace, you're protecting your gift and the pieces of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it. That's again, just my thoughts. That's what makes it a beautiful thing. That's what makes it very unique and what makes it yours, because it is yours, right? And that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. And look, we could definitely talk forever and things like that. And I know you probably got some things to going on and things like that. And I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing not only your journey but your wisdom and your knowledge with myself and with the audience and everything. And so now my next question would be, how can people find Allison?
I have a website, hopeswhispers.ca, and at the bottom of that, there's a contact form. There's a link to my Instagram, Facebook. So that would be the best way to find me. And a little bit of information on me and what I do as well. But
Okay.
I am happy to answer any questions or to have a free mini coaching session. Yeah. Hopeswhispers.ca.
Yeah, now I got your information. I will for everyone tuning in. I will be putting her information in the YouTube channel. So go there, check her out, and let her know that you saw her on the podcast channel, right? You know what I'm saying? Show your love and support to her as well. And my next question to you would be, and I love this question: if you had a superpower, Allison, what would it be?
Oh boy.
Ah.
My 9-year-old son comes up with these crazy questions too, like, Mom, would you rather choose to fly or would you want to be able to look at something and it would be clean? I'm like, oh, that's a hard question.
I love it. I love it.
There's so many broken people in this whole world, and we keep hurting each other and causing so much trauma. If everyone could just heal, and be whole. If I could look at someone and maybe not have the house, not look at a house and have it clean, but look at a person and they'd be healed and right. And yeah, that'd be a pretty cool superpower.
I like that. I definitely like that, right? Because it's a reflection of who you are. That's a strong thing. That's very, very strong. And again, as we begin to wrap this up, Allison, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming on and sharing your journey, your story, and your wisdom with us and things like that. I can't wait to do it again, see where the future lies and, how we can always support each other in this journey of understanding wisdom and healing, right? Because there's always different things that can be going on. For everyone who has been tuning in on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, all of you guys, I see you guys sitting back over there. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you haven't already, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop an episode, and show your support. Guys, you guys help us reach 11,000 views, and we're still going, and things like that. Thank you guys for always helping us achieve these little small milestones. And, we're going to keep bringing more and more amazing people to you guys. And with that being said, Allison, again, thank you for being on. For everyone else, we're going to continue. We're going to close out this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know we're going to see you guys tomorrow in an effort to keep bringing you daily podcasts, right? So we got more people coming. So, yeah, man, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And I wish all the best to you and everyone who listens to you and works with you. They can find what they're looking for.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
vice versa. Thank you so much. Everybody, have a great, amazing day. We're going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.